One week from now, the largest FIFA World Cup in history kicks off across North America. 48 teams, 104 matches, 16 cities, and 3 countries. FIFA projected it would generate 3.8 billion in economic output for Canada alone. Toronto spent 380 million of taxpayer money to host 6 games. Vancouver spent comparable amounts. The promise was simple: host the world's biggest sporting event and the money flows back tenfold. But a week before kickoff, and thousands of tickets remain unsold. Hotel booking in host cities are running at 70 to 90% below expectations. Attorney General in New York, New Jersey, and California have subpoenaed FIFA over its ticketing practices. And sports economists are quietly saying something that nobody at FIFA wants to hear. The net economic impact of hosting a World Cup is close to zero. To understand what's at stake, you need to understand what was promised. When Canada, the United States, and Mexico were awarded the 2026 World Cup in 2018, the pitch to host cities was straightforward. Host the biggest sporting event on earth, open your doors to millions of international visitors, watch the economic activity flow through your hotels, restaurants, transit systems, and local businesses. FIFA commissioned Deloitte to calculate the numbers. Their assessment: 3.8 billion in positive economic output for Canada, 24,100 jobs created or preserved nationally. For every Canadian dollar spent on preparation, $1.09 return to GDP. Toronto allocated 380 million, a combination of city, provincial, and federal funding to host 6 matches. Vancouver committed a comparable amount of 7 matches. On paper, a reasonable investment for a generational event. Problem is that the World Cup economics don't work the way FIFA says they do, and some economists have been saying so for years. Jeff Borland, a sports economist, he studied the economic impact of major sporting events for decades. His conclusion, and he's not alone in this, is that the net economic impact of hosting events like the World Cup is close to zero. The reason is something called the substitution effect. When a major international event comes to your city, it doesn't just bring new visitors in, it pushes existing visitors out. Regular tourists who would have visited Toronto this summer and spent money in Toronto this summer chose not to come because of the World Cup. They didn't want the crowds, the inflated hotel prices, the disruption to normal city life. So the economic activity that the World Cup tourists create is largely offset by the economic activity that the regular tourists aren't creating. And right now, that substitution effect is looking worse than anyone projected. An American Hotel and Lodging Association surveyed found that 70% of Dallas and Houston hotels reported bookings below expectations. Kansas City, nearly 90% below expectations as well. These are not minor shortfalls. These are host cities that spent hundreds of millions of dollars preparing for visitors who haven't shown up. At the center of the story in FIFA's ticketing system, it is, by almost any measure, a disaster. FIFA employed what's called dynamic pricing for this tournament. Dynamic pricing means the price you pay depends on the supply and demand at the moment you buy. In theory, efficient. In practice, a nightmare. When tickets first went on sale, Category 1 group stage tickets were priced at $600 to $700 US. FIFA then added a Category 4, $60 tickets after public outrage. But those $60 seats represented just 1.6% of stadium capacity. The worst seats. Top corner, the seats nobody wants. Then something stranger happened. Fans who had already bought Category 1 tickets started noticing their seat assignment shifting. What they thought was a Category 1 seat was quietly becoming a Category 2. FIFA then introduced a new bracket, Front Row Category 1, to extract even more money from fans who wanted premium seats. The final is even more extraordinary. The cheapest official price Category 4 final seat was $2,030 US, 9 times the cost of a comparable seat by the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, adjusted for inflation. The most expensive Category 1 seats were officially priced at $10,990 US. On the resale market, the cheapest available final tickets are hovering around $8,000 US. For context, a ticket to Team Canada's home opener in Toronto on the resale market is currently going for between 1,300 and 3,000 Canadian for one group stage game. The Attorneys General of the New York, New Jersey, and California have subpoenaed FIFA. They're investigating alleged confusion, scarcity tactics, and pricing that may constitute consumer fraud. And the market has now spoken. Over half of group stage matches on the secondary market have seen ticket prices fall by at least 20% compared with earlier sale periods. 13 matches have get-in prices below 300. 6 matches have get-in prices below 200. The tournament, that was supposed to be inaccessibly expensive, is, in many venues, now struggling to fill seats at any price. Toronto's World Cup story is a study in contrast. The city spent $380 million to host 6 matches. FIFA projected up to $940 million in economic output for the Greater Toronto Area. Sports economists said the net impact would be close to zero. In an unusual move, the City of Toronto used its host city privilege to purchase 3,546 tickets directly. The plan was to resell them at a profit to fund future city events. As of this week, the city says only 70 of those tickets remain unsold. On paper, a win. But zoom out, none of the 6 games in Toronto have been sold out by general public sales. TBC stated, "We reached out to FIFA for comment on Toronto's ticket situation. FIFA did not respond." A sports business professor offered a more measured view. He argued the tourists coming specifically for the World Cup may not have completed their travel planning yet, that the last-minute surge in bookings could still arrive. That's possible. It's also possible that a city which spent $380 million on a promise of global economic transformation is about to discover what sports economists have been saying for years. The math was always more complicated than the projections suggested. The economics are only part of the story. There are 3 other problems that could define how history remembers the tournament. Problem 1, the heat. Multiple venues in the southern United States will see temperatures exceeding 30 degrees Celsius during the matches. Scientists have already warned about risks to players performing strenuous physical activity in those conditions. FIFA solution: 3-minute hydration breaks in each half. Breaks which, perhaps coincidentally, align perfectly with commercial advertising windows for broadcasters. Even in temperature-controlled venues, the breaks will happen anyways. Problem 2, the politics. Iran is competing in this World Cup while the United States is at war with Iran. Iranian fans who chanted anti-American slogans at their team's farewell parade are banned from attending matches. The Iranian team, originally scheduled to train in Arizona, was moved to Tijuana, Mexico, after visa complications for Federation staff. ICE agents will be monitoring the millions of international travelers arriving for the tournament. Several host cities have announced ICE will not patrol their World Cup venues. Others have not made that commitment. The intersection of a global sporting celebration and active geopolitical conflict is, to put it diplomatically, unprecedented. Problem 3, transportation. The New Jersey Transit ticket to MetLife Stadium, normally $12.90 round trip, is now $98. That's a 659% increase. At this week, only 6% of those transit tickets have been sold. If fans can't get to the games affordably, the attendance numbers that cities are counting on may not materialize. So boom or bust? The honest answer is both, depending on who you are. For FIFA, almost certainly a boom. They've sold over 5 million tickets. They received 500 million ticket requests. The broadcast rights deals were signed years ago. The revenue is largely locked in regardless of empty seats or unhappy economists. FIFA gets paid whether the host cities profit or not. For the big name matches, also a boom. Brazil versus Morocco, Portugal versus Colombia, high-profile fixtures are selling strongly and commanding premium prices. The tournament's marquee moments will be sold out and electric. For host cities, generally uncertain, Toronto spent $380 million on a promise. Whether the return materializes depends on last-minute tourism surges that may or may not arrive. Whether the sports economists who say the net impact is close to zero are right, or whether FIFA's $3.8 billion projection proves closer to reality. For local fans, largely a bust. The working people of Toronto, Vancouver, Los Angeles, New York, the people who actually live in the cities hosting the matches, they were priced out from the start. A $60 ticket that represents 1.6% of stadium capacity is not inclusion, it's optics. There's a pattern to how major sporting events get sold to host cities. The promise is always enormous, the economic projection always dazzling. The commitment of public funds always described as an investment is something generational. And then the economists publish their papers years later, saying what they said before the event, that the tourists who came were offset by the tourists who stayed away, that the hotels that filled were offset by the hotels that sat empty, that the money that flowed in was roughly equivalent to the money that didn't. None of that means the World Cup won't be spectacular. When the matches start, the football will take over. The drama, the upsets, the moments that get replayed for decades. Those will happen regardless of what the economists say. But the question of who benefits FIFA or the cities and the people who paid for it, that question will outlast every goal scored this summer. That's the domino nobody's talking about. That's motion and power. If this gave you the full picture you weren't getting from your reels, subscribe. New video every week and share with someone who's been priced out of coin.